नमस्ते, आप सबका स्वागत है इस कार्यक्रम में। ज्ञानवाणी का आज का सेशन बहुत स्पेशल है। सर आ गए हैं, बहुत बहुत स्वागत है सर आपका इस कार्यक्रम में। और आज का स्पेशल सेशन इसलिए है कि लगातार आप लोग जब डिमांड करते रहे हैं हर पिछले चैट में कि सर केस स्टडी पर एक और प्रोग्राम कर दीजिए। सर ने एक केस स्टडी पर पहले ही प्रोग्राम किया था, तो आज ज्ञानवाणी सेशन एथिक्स के पेपर 4 के केस स्टडी पर ही पूरी तरह से तैयार किया गया है। सर आपके आंसर्स देंगे, आप जो क्वेश्चंस पूछेंगे। ये सेशन फिर से यूट्यूब पर सर लाइव है, StudyIQ IAS हिंदी चैनल पर। और आज क्योंकि सवाल बहुत ज्यादा होंगे तो मुझे नहीं लग रहा है मैं यूट्यूब से कोई क्वेश्चन ले पाऊंगा, मैं शुरू में ही बता देता हूँ। तो शुरू करते हैं। सबसे पहले श्रेयांशी गुप्ता। श्रेयांशी जब तक आ रही हैं सर के मतलब हम हर सेशन में 1-2 मिनट आपसे शुरू करते हैं। ये तो केस स्टडी का है और पिछला सेशन भी हुआ था, तो कोई खास बात जो आप
नहीं, मैं सिर्फ आप लोगों को एक चीज बताना चाहूंगा कि एथिक्स का पेपर बहुत आसान है, बहुत डिफिकल्ट है। अगर आप इसको कॉन्सेप्ट समझ लीजिए, इसकी अप्रोच समझ लीजिए, तो पेपर इतना आसान हो जाएगा, आपको ज्यादा पढ़ने की नहीं है। इसमें आपको बहुत ज्यादा ज्ञान नहीं होना चाहिए कि सोक्रेटिस ने क्या कहा था और सेंट थॉमस एक्विनस ने क्या कहा था। अगर आप उसके सिद्धांत को समझ लेंगे, एथिक्स के सिद्धांत को समझ लेंगे, और मूल सिद्धांत जो एथिक्स का वो ये है कि सामान्य धारणा में कौन सी चीज सही है और क्या गलत है, what is right and what is wrong. That is what ethics is all about. Second, you must understand that ethics is beyond law. When ethical values get codified, they become laws. तो सामान्य रूप से जितने प्रश्न आते हैं वो लॉ पे नहीं आते, क्योंकि आप कोई गलत काम करेंगे तो आपमें पनिशमेंट मिल जाएगा। एथिक्स में अगर आप काम एथिकल नहीं करते हैं तो आपको कोई फिजिकल पनिशमेंट या फाइनेंशियल पनिशमेंट नहीं मिलेगा। तो ये प्योर सेंस ऑफ राइट एंड रॉन्ग है। जैसा मैंने पहले बताया कि राइट एंड रॉन्ग का जो सेंस है, जब वो कोडिफाई हो जाता है तो वो पनिशेबल हो जाता है, चाहे उसमें फाइनेंशियल पनिशमेंट हो सकता है, कॉर्पोरल पनिशमेंट हो सकता है। लेकिन प्योर एथिक्स बियॉन्ड लॉ है। जो जितना भी हम चर्चा करेंगे वो लॉ के बियॉन्ड है, यानी कि वो कोडिफाइड नहीं हुआ है आपको क्या सही है क्या गलत है। और दूसरा कि जो भी आप ऑप्शन, जैसे एथिक्स में हमेशा एक ये होता है, चॉइस होती है कि हम ये काम करें या ये काम करें, उसी में निर्धारित करते हैं कि कौन सा सही है कौन सा गलत है। और सही और गलत निर्धारण करने के लिए ये भी देखना आवश्यक होगा कि उसका लॉन्ग टर्म इंपैक्ट क्या होता है। कई सारी चीजें जो शॉर्ट टर्म में शायद सही लगती हैं, लेकिन उसका लॉन्ग टर्म इंपैक्ट अगर नेगेटिव है सोसाइटी पर, तो उसको हम अनएथिकल कहेंगे। जब हम केस स्टडी डिस्कस करेंगे तो इसको और हम इलस्ट्रेट करेंगे, लेकिन ये फंडामेंटल प्रिंसिपल आप समझ लीजिए कि एथिक्स मूलतः ये है कि क्या सही है क्या गलत है और उसका लॉन्ग टर्म इंपैक्ट सोसाइटी पे क्या है।
ठीक है, चलिए शुरू करते हैं। श्रेयांशी गुप्ता। श्रेयांशी SHEYA। श्रेयांशी अभी नहीं जुड़ी हुई हैं। गुलफशन खातून। GULAFSHAN। पंकज सलारिया। पंकज आपको आवाज आ रही है? अगर आवाज आ रही हो तो अपना माइक ऑन कर लीजिए और अपना सवाल पूछिए। पंकज सलारिया। कोशिश कर रहे हैं लेकिन बंद हो जा रहा है। इंटरनेट का शायद कोई इशू है, कोई बात नहीं। अतुल ओझा। पंकज हम लोग फिर से आपसे कनेक्ट होंगे। अतुल ओझा। अतुल आवाज आ रही है आपको? हाँ, अपना सवाल पूछिए। अपना कैमरा ऑन कर लीजिए, वीडियो ऑन कर लीजिए और सवाल पूछिए।
पहले तो आप अपने केस स्टडी डिफाइन कीजिए कि कौन की केस स्टडी है, ब्रीफली बताइए और उसमें क्या प्रश्न है पूछिए। इससे बेहतर तो जूम है।
हाँ उस पर ज्यादा अच्छा हो जाता है।
जूम इज बेटर। इसमें बहुत टाइम लगता है। पिछला सेशन में जूम से बाहर।
हेलो।
हाँ अतुल बताइए।
हाँ, गुड इवनिंग सर।
गुड इवनिंग अतुल।
Sir, my case study is from 2017 year means. Hello. Hello.
यस, आपकी तरफ
Sir,
इंटरनेट में कुछ प्रॉब्लम लग रही है, आपकी आवाज क्लियरली नहीं आ पा रही है। आई एम अनेबल टू हियर यू क्लियरली।
sir, now audible? Hello.
इट्स बेटर नाउ, प्लीज गो अहेड।
Sir, there is a case study. It is a conditional one. Sir, can I proceed?
Yes, please go ahead.
Sir, there is a case study like that. You are a public information officer in a government department. You are aware that the RTI Act 2005 envisages transparency and accountability in administration. The Act has functioned as a check on the supposedly arbitrary administrative behavior and action. However, as a PIO, you have observed that there are citizens who file RTI applications not for themselves, but on behalf of such other stakeholders who purportedly want to have access to information to further their own interest. At the same time, there are these RTI activists.
Go ahead. You can switch off your video because your sound is getting. You can switch off your video. There is some bandwidth problem at your end. Please go ahead. Yes.
At the same time, there are RTI activists who routinely file RTI applications and attempt to extort money from the decision makers. This type of RTI activism has affected the functioning of the administration adversely and also possibly jeopardizes the genuineness of the application, which are essentially aimed at getting justice. What measures would you suggest to separate genuine and non-genuine applications, give merits and demerits of your suggestions? So this is the question.
Okay. So, are you able to
it
listen
is saying that, okay, proceed.
Yes.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
So what is your issue that you want to discuss?
Sir, in this question, sir, it is like that. It is factual one. Hello?
No, it is. So, okay, let me try and explain to you how to approach such a question. Under the RTI,
okay, sir,
any individual can ask for factual information regarding any act of the government or its department, irrespective of what is the status that person. He may or may not be interested. This is very clear. So you don't have a choice not to part with information which a person is asking. The problem here is that he is using this information to extort something from officers. Now, if the information sought is a factual information, irrespective of the fact that how it is used, you have to provide that information. Now, if the concerned officer is not doing anything illegal, then how will the extortion happen? So I don't think that should be a concern as far as providing information is concerned. Information should be provided because under law, under RTI, you have to provide the information sought by anybody. There have been cases where people have tried to put pressure on the department by seeking that information, but that's the whole idea of RTI, that if any wrong is happening somewhere, it will stand to be exposed through the use of RTI. It is not material what the intention of the seeker is. That is not material at all. So long as that information is available, under law, you have to provide that information.
Okay, sir.
You got the point? So we will not go into the manner or the purpose for which information is sought. The better way of going about it is that, as many departments are doing, they are placing most of the information on their respective portals, so that it becomes available to everybody. Now, if I have nothing to hide, and I'll give you a purely personal example. As Coal Secretary, Government of India, I used to place every information on the portal. We stopped getting RTI applications. Why? Because the moment that application came to us, we told them this information is available on this portal. You can get it from there. So that is the best way of handling it. Whether it is being used or abused cannot be a basis for denying anybody information. And the abuse, as mentioned in this case study, is perhaps in terms of extorting some money from the officers. Now, if the concerned officer has not done anything wrong, then how can that extortion happen? So I don't think that should be an issue. Does that explain, Atul?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, we can take the next one.
अभिषेक कुमार.
आगे से इसको जूम पे लीजिए.
हाँ, जूम पे कर.
We waste a lot of time.
Yes. सिर्फ अभिषेक कुमार.
अभी हाँ यही होंगे, अभिषेक कुमार पंकज जी होंगे.
करिए, ऑन करके देखिए. अभिषेक, आवाज आ रही है आपको?
See what we did in Zoom, we picked up the person.
Yes.
और अपना शुरू हो गया. We picked up the person, अपना शुरू हो गया. It was much easier. इसमें तो आने में बहुत टाइम लगता है.
अभिषेक को आवाज नहीं आ रही. ठीक है, एक बार फिर से श्रेयसी गुप्ता को जोड़ लीजिए. श्रेयांशी गुप्ता को. SHREYA. इन्होंने हैंड रेज किया है. श्रेयसी, बताइए, आवाज आ रही है आपको?
गुड इवनिंग
अपना
सर.
वीडियो ऑन कर लीजिए, अपना सवाल पूछिए.
वीडियो
श्रेयसी, वीडियो भी ऑन कर लीजिए अपना.
गुड इवनिंग सर.
गुड इवनिंग श्रेयसी, प्लीज गो अहेड.
हेलो.
ब्रीफली अपना केस स्टडी बताइए और क्वेश्चन पूछिए.
Yes, sir. My case study is Saraswati was a successful IT professional in USA, but she moved in India together with some other like-minded friends. She formed an NGO to build a school for a poor rural community. The objective of the school was to provide the best quality modern education at a nominal cost. But she soon discovered that she has to seek permission from a number of government agencies. The rules and procedures were quite confusing and cumbersome. What frustrated her most was delays. Her attitude of attitude of officials and constant demand for bribes. Her experience and the experience of many other like her has deterred people from taking up social services projects. And a measure of government control over voluntary social work is necessary, but it should not be exercised, but well-meaning, honest NGO efforts are not thwarted.
So what is the question?
Question is that what she can do to उसे उन्हें एनजीओ को आगे करने के लिए कैसे गवर्नमेंट प्रोसेस है उनको कैसे इजी बनाया जाए ये.
Okay, so there are two parts to it. One, what the government can do and what the NGOs can do. Okay, NGOs themselves cannot do much, but government can today, as is being done in a number of processes, use technology to make the process transparent. So one is the problem with regard to delays, because everyone wants speed money to give clearance. The other is the transparency in the process. So some of the processes or some of the sanctions or some of the approvals that are required may not actually be required. It is merely creating problems for the NGO. The underlying principle of these rules is to see that the NGO is a genuine one. The underlying processes are certain processes that are required under various provisions of law that are followed. So all that can be done if the process itself is streamlined and technology is used. Let me explain this further. Suppose the government decides that these applications can be applied online and the applicant can actually see where the application is pending, at which level. This is happening in some of the cases. So then they can actually track their applications. In that case, then it would be difficult for officials or officers to sit on that particular application. So many departments have not only digitalized the processes, through that they have been able to rationalize the process also, meaning thereby that they are able to determine whether an application should go through so many stages, whether lesser stages will serve the same purpose. So for any process, there is an objective behind it. Whether that objective can be fulfilled by simplifying the process. So same information, I'll give you an example. A particular application or particular NGO may require multiple clearance from various departments. What can actually be done is that she can apply at a place, and that information can be shared at the back end by all the ministries, who in turn can process and provide it. Just to give you an example, the government of Haryana has already started this practice of enabling applicants to not to come to any government department, apply through a kiosk, and then they can actually track the application. If that happens, corruption levels will come down quite dramatically. Okay?
Okay. And sir, can I ask some other questions related to exam?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. There is some internet problem at your end.
Sir, hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go
sir,
ahead.
Can I ask some other questions related to exam?
You can ask that in different session. This is basically for ethical case studies. There are other case studies. If there is time left in the end, we'll come back to it. Ethics है तो पूछे. If it's ethics related, पूछे.
आर्टिकल्स जो होते हैं उनको ऐड करना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी होता है, या फिर उनके बिना भी एग्जांपल्स के थ्रू हम एक्सप्लेन कर सकते हैं?
I can't. आपका मीडियम इंग्लिश है, हिंदी है?
English.
So why are you conversing in Hindi? You ask me question because I also get confused. You ask your question. Go ahead, ask again.
So is using articles in answers in ethics is necessary or not?
Which articles?
Related to case, some examples, which some reforms.
No articles. I can't understand. Articles of the Constitution or what? What do you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Constitutions articles.
No, articles of Constitution are constitutional articles
related
are
to some
law.
cases.
No, they are already law. If there is a law, then there is no running away from it. Ethics is the gray area between what is illegal and what is legal. Anything that is defined in the Constitution is a law. So there is no option but to follow that law. You cannot say you do this, you do that. It's clear. And all of you should listen to it very carefully. Ethics is beyond law. What is given in the law has to be in any case done. If you don't do that, you will be penalized. But in ethics, if you don't follow ethical principle, you cannot be penalized. Ethics has more to do with conscience. You must understand the difference between ethics and law. I said in the beginning, ethical values that are codified, they become law. And when they become law, you can be physically or financially penalized. But if it is not a law, then there's no physical penalty. There's no financial penalty. It is merely your conscience that determines what is right and wrong. Have you understood the difference?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
एक बार फिर से ट्राई कीजिएगा पंकज सलारिया को. पंकज, आवाज आ रही है आपको?
Yes, hello. Pankaj. Yes, go ahead. Ask your question.
Good evening, sir.
Mention your case study. Good evening. Mention your case study and ask your question.
Sir, my case study is about question paper from the question paper 2016. So मेरा case study ये है कि एक fresh एक graduate engineer student है जिसका अभी एक chemical industry में job लगा है. तो सर उसको job की जरूरत भी है साथ में, क्योंकि वो एक sole bed earner है अपनी family में. उसको अपनी family भी चलानी है, अपने भाई बहन का भी देखना है. तो उसकी सर जॉब तो अच्छी खासी चल रही है, लेकिन एक दिन उसको इस चीज का पता लगता है कि जो उसकी कंपनी है, जो एक फैक्ट्री है, वो अपना टॉक्सिक वेस्ट एक रिवर में डिस्चार्ज करती है.
ये आपका पिछले सेशन में बिल्कुल नहीं हो रहा था लॉस।
क्या इंटरनेट की प्रॉब्लम यहाँ की है? मुझे लग रहा है यहाँ की है।
पिछले सेशन में तो बिल्कुल प्रॉब्लम नहीं थी।
ठीक है।
हेलो
पंकज, आपकी आवाज का लॉस हो गया है, हम आपको सुन नहीं पा रहे हैं ठीक से।
हेलो।
हाँ पंकज बताइए। हाँ, उनकी जॉब उनको ठीक लग रही है, जरूरी है, उसके आगे बताइए।
जी सर, वो जो फैक्ट्री का जो वेस्ट। हेलो।
इनको हटाइए फिर नेक्स्ट लीजिए।
ठीक है पंकज, आपकी आवाज नहीं आ पा रही है तो प्रभात। प्रभात, आपको आवाज आ रही है?
हेलो।
प्रभात पूछिए।
हेलो, गुड इवनिंग सर।
हाँ, गुड इवनिंग, प्लीज गो अहेड।
सर केस स्टडी है, इट इज अ स्टेट वेयर प्रोहिबिशन is in force and you are recently appointed as the superintendent of police of a district notorious for illicit distillation of liquor. The illicit liquor leads to many deaths, reported and unreported, and causes a major problem for the district authorities. And further, the approach till now had been to view as a law and order problem and tackle it accordingly. Raids, arrests, police cases, and criminal trials. All these had only limited impact. Problem remains as serious as ever. Your inspections shows that parts of the district where distillation flourishes are economically, industrially, and educationally backward. Agriculture is badly affected by poor irrigation facility. Frequent clashes among communities gave boost to illicit distillation. No major. Hello.
Please go ahead. Go ahead. I can hear you.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. No major initiatives had taken place in the past, either from government side or from social organization to improve the lot of people. So, which new approach will you adopt to bring the problem under control?
So, I think this is a very good case study that you brought about, and everyone should listen to this very carefully. Here, fundamentally, there are no ethical issues involved, but it is a part of the ethics paper. So, they are testing approach to solving problem. So far, the approach has been to look at the symptoms of the problem. So, everyone was tackling the symptoms of the problem, that is, catching people who were brewing illicit liquor and punishing them without looking at the fundamental cause of the problem. The case study presents you the cause of the problem also, which has not been addressed. So whereas action with regard to illicit liquor should continue, effort should be made to address fundamental issues that lead to illicit liquor. The cause of this is primarily either poverty or unemployment or a combination of these. So the effort should be to see how the cause of illicit liquor can be taken care of. You know, if you have cared to read my book, No More a Civil Servant, there is a case study exactly like this, where in a particular district this problem existed. How the superintendent of police of that district managed to solve the problem will give you an answer. I'll explain that to you, but that's a case study in my book, No More a Civil Servant. Now, what the SP did was, and I'm giving you a practical solution of what he did, can be done in every situation. He went to the village, tried to understand the cause of the problem, and discovered exactly what is given in the case study, that they had no employment opportunities, and hence they had no option but to look for an easy opportunity of getting money. So what the SP did was, he got in touch with the district magistrate, the chief development officer, and found which of the government schemes that could be implemented there to generate employment in that particular region. Now, government has a number of schemes like the MNREGA, where there is an employment guarantee scheme. Can some project be taken up in that village where employment could be given to the employees? This would be a temporary nature. But for more permanent, exploration will have to be done. What is the potential of employment in that area? In the case study that I am mentioning in my book, the SP discovered that honey beekeeping could be taken up in those villages because of the flora and fauna there. So he got in touch with people who were doing this business, got them over to this village, got the village people trained in that, and they started honey business. Today, that village is flourishing because their employment has improved, they have got income. Similarly, other similar schemes of the government have to be found out, which can be implemented there so that the fundamental issue relating to employment and poverty can be taken care of. Does that answer your question? You have... इसका कुछ करो यार. We waste a lot of time.
Hello.
This. Yes. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. That was Yes, sir. That was answered. But can in the answer, sir, can I add problem regarding the prohibition in the Bihar? There is prohibition of liquor consumption in Bihar. So that that condition of interstate migration for the liquor. Sir, interstate. Yes, sir.
Prabhat, when you say illicit liquor, whether there is prohibition or not, it is illicit. Okay. So the problem is the same, whether it's prohibition. When you say illicit liquor, and the case study said illicit liquor, no, prohibition is not material. In case of prohibition, all liquor brewing is illicit. In case of states where there is no prohibition, without permit, brewing of liquor is illicit. So illicit covers both the cases, irrespective of whether it's Bihar, UP, or some other state. So that's not material at all. So don't digress. Because had they said
that will become inappropriate, no, sir?
No, it's not needed. Because illicit is illicit, whether Bihar or UP. It doesn't matter. Solution to the illicit liquor is the same, whether Bihar or UP. In Bihar, even regular brewing, which would have been allowed in UP, would be illicit. So law defines what is illicit or not. But our question is, can we give them alternative sources of employment? That's the key. If there is an alternative source of employment there, then the chances are people will not go into. So illicit liquor is not for liquor, but for employment purpose. Have you understood it?
Okay, sir. Okay.
Right. Now, I'm glad this case study has been brought out. You will discover, as I have discovered in a number of ethics case study, that not always are there ethical issues. There is no ethical issue here. There is no dilemma here.
Yes, sir.
There is only a clear-cut case of finding a reason for such a wrong practice, and it's an illegal problem. So it's much more constrained. Okay, the answers to overcoming illegal problem is much easier than ethical ones. Ethical, the decisions are difficult. Here, decisions are fairly simple.
Sir.
Yes.
Sir, can you explain more on ethical and
okay,
legal
let me. When ethical values are what you deem to be right and wrong. A part of what you deem to be right and wrong becomes a part of law. So whereas almost everything that is a part of law comes under ethics, but everything in ethics may or may not be illegal. So if you look at concentric circles, then law is a smaller circle out of the larger ethical principle. Is that understood?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Next, Ananya. अनन्या, आवाज आ रही है आपको?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, Ananya.
Sir, the case study I want to discuss is you are a municipal commissioner of a large city having the reputation of an honest and upright officer. There is a huge multi-purpose mall under construction where a big chunk of roof collapses and instant death of 4 laborers, including 2 minors, due to monsoon. And a preliminary inquiry reveals a series of anomalies. The approved building plans does not permit a basement that was built, and also it also has encroached on the areas marked for green belt and a slip road in the zonal master plan. The inquiry reveals that it was approved by a senior who is also a good friend, and It appears to be a case of widespread nexus between officials and municipal corporations of the building. Colleagues are putting pressure for going slow on the inquiry, and the builder has also pressurized and hinted that there can be a case against you under the POSH Act if their demands are not met. The question is that discuss the ethical issues involved in the case and what are the options available to you in the situation, explaining the course of action.
Okay. So what are the ethical issues? Let's start with ethical issues and then options, not the options and then ethical issues. Okay. So what are the ethical issues involved here? The various options available with the officer are to conduct inquiry or not conduct inquiry. So he has no choice. He has to conduct inquiry. That is, he has been asked to inquire. The question is whether he should go slow on that, allow that to happen. Here, the ethical principles are very clear. He should do and come to conclusions based on the evidence before him, irrespective of the fact who gets penalized under it. There would be consequences. There could be consequences of transfers or probably some false allegation against him. But the ethics demands that he does what is expected of him. That's what ethics is all about. What is right and what is wrong. So socially, what is right is that he should carry on with his inquiry and at the speed that he would do without being under anybody's pressure. So that is very clear in this case. There is no option but for him to carry on with the inquiry.
Okay. So there are two questions actually what I wanted to ask and why
Yes.
I chose to discuss it. So this the question is basically about what are the options available in the situation, right? And at one point it has also mentioned like the problem seems to be a inquiry. So what I wanted to understand like there was the post has been said as a municipal commissioner, and it has also been said that there has been death of laborers and miners. So can the remedy also include some any sort of benefit that can be given to them?
Okay, so let us, so you raised the right point. Let us look at the immediate issue, medium-term issue and long-term issue. Okay, the immediate issue is the compensation to be given to the laborers, which should be given to them. Under law, there are rules of compensation to such laborers who die. They should be benefited. That is without a question. I don't think anyone is going to question benefit accruing to the laborers who died. There's no ethical issue here. Simple.
Yeah.
No one would disagree. There would be no pressure. If any, there would be pressure to give more compensation to them. So that's a no-gainer.
So that can be put in the answer.
That is straight away. Yeah, you start with this immediate solution to the problem. So this is the immediate issue, what you do. Then the next issue is the inquiry part. And the third part is long-term improvement in processes so that this usual clearances without complying with legal provisions is not given.
Yeah.
So and everyone should listen to this carefully. When such a question comes, if you can break it into immediate, medium-term and long-term issues, your answer will appear to be much better than others because you've organized your answer. In another session, I was mentioning this. How do you answer a question? That's very important. So if you say that immediate steps are with regard to the labor, the intermediate steps with regard to inquiry, and long-term measures in terms of ensuring that such a problem does not recur in future. If you break it into three parts, I think you'll get very good marks.
Okay, so I had one more issue regarding the question which I wanted to just ask. So because this says that the minister as well as the administration as well as the builder is maybe putting pressure on the officer at the moment. So of course what the person should do, that is clear, but I wanted to ask, like, is there a scope of mentioning that if the pressure is too much, there can be some internal grievance that can be raised or something? Is that something that can be put, or
we must mention, if you have I don't know how many words you have to answer this question in, but if you have space available, so then you would have space available to mention that there could possibly be consequences for the inquiring officer if it does not comply with the pressure that is built on him. But it will help him in the long run because he would have developed a reputation of an officer who's honest and who is objective in his approach. and he will stand to benefit in the long run, though there could be a possibility of him getting transferred in the short run. You can mention that. Ananya?
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Is that okay?
Okay, thanks a lot.
Right.
Okay, next one is Archana Tripathi. Archana, are you listening?
Archana, are you there?
I don't think. Okay, next try Rohan. Rohan. Rohan.
Yes, sir. I am audible.
Ask your question.
Okay. So the case study is from 2019. So the question is like, in recent time, there has been an increasing concern in India to develop effective civil services ethics, code of conduct, transparency measures, ethics and integrity system, and anti-corruption agencies. In view of this, there is a need being felt to focus on three specific areas which are directly relevant to the problems of internalizing integrity and ethics in civil services. So these are as follows: anticipating specific threats to ethical standards and integrity in civil services, strengthening the ethical competence of civil servants, and developing administrative process and practices which promote the ethical values and integrity in civil services. So the question here is suggest institutional measures to address the above three issues. So
Okay,
this
so let's take them one by one.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
Let's take them one by one. Mention the first point and we'll discuss that. Then the second and the third. We'll take each one of them.
Okay, so the first point here is anticipating specific threats to ethical standards and integrity in civil services.
So you have to hear in answer to this question, what is the institutional mechanism that you can put in place to anticipate such threats? So what can possibly be suggested is setting up of an agency, not the CVC. CVC does not anticipate. CVC is a post-mortem, so to say, after the actual action happens, then the CVC comes into the picture. In fact, right now in government, there is no agency which anticipates the likely ethical issues in future. So probably in terms of, though on the lines of CVC, setting up institution like ombudsman or ethics committee, or you can name it whichever way you want, which actually looks at the nature of ethical misconduct that has happened in the past, and then works out that these are the ways in which officers do become unethical, and then suggest to the government as to what measures could be taken to prevent that. So, for example, if an officer who's posted in Delhi comes with his children to Delhi on deputation, and his children have to be admitted somewhere in a school. Now, if he doesn't find a regular way of getting admission to his child, he'll find some unethical way of putting pressure on the school to get admission. For that, as was done by central government, they set up a school here for government, central government employees, and that prevented the government officers from putting unethical pressure on schools to get them admission, so they could get admitted. I'm just giving a very isolated example here, but such an agency can anticipate after examining the nature of the unethical conduct of officers in the past. And then they can anticipate that these are the likely recurrences of unethical conduct, and then suggest ways to the government as to creation of such institution facilities which prevents officer from doing that. What was the second one? Question?
Yes, sir. Sir, just for the how to start this question. Actually, can we criticize the current situation here that
No, you don't.
there is no?
You don't. No, they're not asking you for any criticism. They are asking you what is the way forward. Why should you criticize?
Looking at the current situation.
No. You don't even know the current situation. You're all hearsay. So
Okay, sir.
Don't ever think that you know everything. So they will ask you something, you answer that. Don't unnecessarily, there's no harm in being critical, but here the question doesn't want you to be critical. They're asking you suggestions. So why should you criticize? They're themselves saying that the situation is this. Now, this is very important for all of you. Don't start with the criticism. The question says, what would you suggest? They are admitting that there is something wrong. You don't have to reiterate that admission. You have to give suggestions. Go to the second point. What is the second point they've asked for?
Okay, the second point is strengthening the ethical competence of civil servants.
So, you know, in a large number of cases, the government servants are not even aware of what should be their conduct ethically as laid down in the code of conduct. So what can be done is hold training sessions for the civil servants who join the service to make them understand what is unethical and ethical. You know, sometimes being unaware of what is not expected of them, they do that. So I know of civil servants who were not aware that this is not correct and they did it. So making them aware, that can be done institutionally by holding regular seminars and conferences with the civil servants, making them aware of what is right and what is wrong. Sometimes there is a lack of awareness. The third one is the most critical one. Read it out and then I'll explain to you.
Okay, the third one is developing administrative process and practices which promote ethical values and integrity in civil services.
Now, look at it, and this is, to my mind, is the most useful and the most critical one. If the processes in the government are made transparent, then officers will think twice because of the apprehension of exposure. They can be exposed if everything is transparent. If, for example, it is known to the world at large that which officer or which babu is sitting on which file for hours and minutes, then the chances are that he will not sit on the file. Right now, opacity is one of the primary reasons for unethical conduct of officers. If transparency is brought about, and this can be brought about through use of technology. Okay? Hello? Are you there? Okay, we go to the next one.
Okay. Next one is Vipul Srivastav. VIPUL. Madhu Prashant. मधु, अपना सवाल पूछिए. आपको आवाज आ रही है?
Hello. Evening, sir.
Madhu. Yes, good evening. If you can open your video, nothing like it.
Sir, I think video is open.
Anyway, go ahead. Ask your question. We can't see you.
Sir, my question is regarding a young civil servant. Sunil is a young civil servant and has a reputation of his competence, integrity, dedication, and relentless pursuit of difficult and wondrous jobs. Consider his profile. He was picked up by his bosses to handle very challenging and sensitive assignment. He was posted in tribal dominant district, notorious for illegal sand mining, in caving sand from river belt and transporting through trucks and selling them in black market was rampant. This illegal sand mining was operating with the support of local functionaries and tribal musclemen, who is in turn were bribing selected poor tribals and had kept the tribals under fear and immediately. Sunil, being a sharp and energetic officer, immediately grasped the ground reality and modus operandi followed by the mafia through his devious and devious mechanism. On making inquiries, he gathered that some of his own office employees and in hand and glove with them, and have developed close unholy nexus. Sunil initiated stringent action against them and started conducting raids on their illegal operation and movement of truck filled with sand. The mafia got rattled as not many officers in the past has taken such a strong steps against the mafia. Some of the office employees who were illegally close to mafia informed them that the officers has determined to clean up the mafia's illegal sand mining operations in the district, and and may cause them irrelevant damage. The mafia turned hostile and launches counter-offense. The tribal muscleman and mafia started threatening him with dire consequences. His family, wife and mother and old mother, were starved and were stressed to all of them. The matter assumes serious proportions when a Muslim come to his office and threatened him to stop raids, etc. Otherwise, his fate will not be difficult from some of his procedures. 10 years back, one officer who was killed by the mafia. Sir, my question is regarding that. Identify the difficult opinions available to Sunil in attending his situation.
We have to look at two broad choices he has. One is succumb to the threat and stop those operations. The second is continue with those operations with certain measures that he needs to take. Obviously, not taking action is ruled out. He has to continue to take action with the following things. Number one, he should bring this to the notice of seniors. He should bring to the notice of the law enforcing agency so that necessary security gets provided to him. He should try and build opinion around what he is doing by communicating with his own team, clearly telling them that he will not tolerate any activity which is not as per the law, which is not as per their duty. He will not tolerate. He will have to create an environment and wherein people start believing that what he is doing is correct, and seek support from those around him. Now, those supporters could be his bosses, may or may not come from there, from law and order agency. If he is an enforcement officer below the district magistrate, bring it to the notice of district magistrate. The effort should be to build support systems for his actions that he's taking. He cannot be himself just a firebrand officer going there on his own taking action. He has to engage and involve other such agencies which not only provide support but carry out the operations that he is doing. To give a parallel example, you go for any demolition against any illegal construction, you have to have the police around with you. You have to take police into confidence. So similarly, in this case, you have to have the local police into confidence. You have to have the local district magistrate into confidence. You have to also converse with those that come to meet you and tell them and convey to them that it is for their own good that he is doing that. So build a support system around himself. Things may still go wrong, but the chances are that if he builds that support system around him, he'll be able to carry on with his operations.
Yes, sir. Sir, one question more regarding this. Sir, if anything regarding that there is involvement of terrorists or such with mafias, it can be possible.
No, it could be, in some cases there could be terrorism involved, and that is why your job as an enforcer, you may not have your job to tackle the terrorists. You'll require some specialized force to handle terrorists. Then you have to get in touch with those people who can handle those terrorists. Depending on the nature of the problem, you have to get in touch with the concerned authorities. Maybe take the local minister or somebody into confidence and tell them this is what is required to be done. It may or may not happen, but that is the best way forward.
Yes, sir. Sir, means the need of any inquiring such like CBI or such like this or a ministry such like an politician who can handle these actions more.
No, don't bring in CBI. CBI has nothing to do with such mining and things like that. CBI comes much later. Don't give in anybody else. You are the officer in charge for ensuring that illegal mining doesn't happen. You do it with the support of people. Your primary job is yours. You are seeking support. You can't pass on the case to CBI because CBI has nothing to do with until the case gets assigned to CBI. CBI doesn't come into the picture. They are more on newspapers than the number of cases handled by CBI is much lesser than the usual cases that are there. So don't bring in CBI or anybody else. It has to be very specific. You mentioned terrorism. No, CBI doesn't handle terrorism. There are other agencies that handle terrorism. Then it will be brought to the notice of those agencies.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, next is Himadri Dangwal. Himadri is not there. Vishal Joshi. Vishal Joshi bhi
Okay,
nahi hai.
as you are calling the names, let me explain this to you because I'm more keen on how you approach an answer rather than the answer itself. What you have to do, usually, you have to look very carefully as to what is the question that is asked. Normally, in any ethical issues, you have to first discuss the possible options before the officer. What are the ethical issues involved? You have to list them out. These are the ethical issues. Then the consequences of taking action on a particular issue. So if the action has to be taken or has not to be taken, what are the likely consequences? If you follow this logic, and then as corrective steps, if you look at, not in all cases, but in a number of cases, as we did in one of the cases here, that what are the short-term measures that you have to take, what are the medium-term measures you have to take, what are the long-term measures, and the implications of these measures, and the action point in those measures that you have to take. If you can structure your answer accordingly, I think the chances of you getting more marks are more.
ठीक है बड़े सर एक आध और अभी लेंगे हम लोग
हाँ अभी तो है
6:50
we have time.
अभिरुचि राज अभिरुचि ठीक है सचिन कुमार सचिन
he's unmuted.
Hi, sir.
Ask the
Hi,
question.
hi, Sachin. If you can open your video, nothing like it.
Yeah, sir. I can open my video.
Please open your video and ask your question.
Yeah, I have opened it, sir.
Chaliye, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, sir, this question is related to the sexual harassment case study. So the case study says that an apparel manufacturing company having large number of women employees was losing sales due to various factors. The company had a reputed marketing executive who increased the volume of sales within a short span of time. However, some unconfirmed reports came up regarding the indulgence in sexual harassment at the workplace. After some time, a woman employee launched a formal complaint to the management against the marketing executive about sexually harassing her. Faced with the company's indifference in not taking cognizance of her grievance, she lodged an FIR with the police. Realizing the insensitivity and gravity of the situation, the company called the woman employee to negotiate. In that, she was offered a hefty sum of money to withdraw the complaint and FIR, and also give in writing that marketing executive is not involved in the case. So, question here is, sir, identify the ethical issues involved in the case and what options are available to the woman employee. Sir, I have actually, sir, prepared some of the ethical issues also. So
please
maybe, sir, I can tell you
yes.
whether I'm going in the correct way or not.
Yes.
So, sir, ethical issues here involved is lack of safe environment for women, working environment for women, misuse of power of like higher positions, no proper redressal of complaints of the employee as management was not taking that seriously, no gender equality at workplace, and lack of company policies related to the sexual harassment, and the other training sessions which we generally give in the case of sexual harassment and all these things. So is
Sachin,
it correct, sir?
No. Sachin, you have, by discussing instead of discussing the options, you are discussing conclusions. Nowhere does the case study say that there was actually sexual harassment. Does it say? It says there was a complaint.
No, sir. It is yes.
No,
Some unconfirmed reports. It said yes.
So how can you come to a conclusion while starting an answer? So what the company lacked was an immediate inquiry into the matter when sexual harassment case was started. That is one. That is an incontroverted fact. And that's an ethical issue and legal issue as well, in the sense that the moment that complaint came, there is a provision that the company should have inquired into that matter. It would not have snowballed into such a serious crisis. Okay.
Yes,
What
correct.
led this lady to file an FIR? Because the company was not listening to her. The ethical issue was that the company should have listened to her, not concluded that there were sexual harassment cases, instituted an inquiry, and in case there was sexual harassment proved, then action taken against the concerned manager. It is nowhere there in the case study. This was not done. So the lodging of FIR was not based whether there was sexual harassment case or not, because FIR also is not a proof of sexual harassment. The lodging was FIR was because the company did not take action. So that's the primary fault here. The primary issue here is that the company should have inquired into it. Now, once the FIR is lodged, then the second unethical thing that the company does is to put pressure on the employee to withdraw the case.
Yes,
that's the second
correct.
unethical issue. So you are not concluding here. You are merely analyzing what is given. Everyone in this webinar right now should listen to this very carefully. Don't come to conclusions in the opening para. First para should be, what are the issues involved? You have to list them out. The first issue is the company should have instituted an inquiry. That was unethical and illegal on their part not to do it. Number two, putting pressure on the lady to withdraw FIR is the second problem that they have. So these two are the primary infractions by the company without concluding that whether there was or there wasn't a sexual harassment case or not. Because only an inquiry will reveal that. Now the company stands to suffer because FIR. Now let us look at them from the lady's point of view. Let us look at it. This is from the company's point of view. Now from the lady's point of view, it would be unethical for her to withdraw a complaint which she thinks is a legitimate one, because in the long run it will harm her and also the company. Because if there is a proof of sexual harassment, not only would be the case against manager, it would set the example that this company does not tolerate sexual harassment. Secondly, the other ladies will also benefit, because if this is allowed to happen, then there could be sexual harassment against other girls. So if you remember in the beginning, I had said ethical issue is not merely right and wrong, but its implication in the long run. So what are the long-term implications of withdrawing that FIR? So withdrawing FIR will not only be harmful to the lady concerned, but could be harmful for other ladies, because then it would be believed that sexual harassment, you can get away with it. So it's very important to establish that sexual harassment is something which cannot be dealt with in a manner in which the company did it. So if you explain all this, you would have identified the options, you would have identified the ethical issues, and that's but not what you said in the beginning. Please don't come to the conclusions in the beginning. Okay?
Yes, sure, sir, sure. Sir, also, sir, here I was actually thinking that in the first para, if you'll see, it was mentioned that in short span of time, volume of sales was shot up. So that is a good thing for the company also, because it was having like losing sales due to various factors. But if this will come into open, it will also tarnish the image of company. So again, in that case, maybe it will impact on the employment also. So
correct.
Can this be like given in this?
So when you write the impact on the company on account of being unethical, you can add this point and say that in the long run, the company will get a bad reputation and its sales will suffer or likely to suffer. The engagement of people also will suffer, because many women will think twice before joining the company. So all this is important, right?
Yeah.
You can take.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Thanks for your time, sir.
Okay, since we have run out of time, let me make some general observations. I think some very good case studies came up. As I have seen the question papers for the civil service exam for ethics paper, not every question relates to ethics. A number of questions, at least one case study came up today, which has more to do with management than ethics. So you have to put yourself in the shoes of that person and suggest corrective measures. But what is most important is, which I said earlier and I'm repeating here, don't start with conclusions. Start by either identifying issues or identifying options, and then discuss each of the options, both pros and cons, its implication for the company or the individual or the organization. If a particular decision is taken, what are the implications? If the other decision is taken, what are the implications? So you start structuring your answers in this manner. You practice that writing. I don't think ethics you have to learn too much. In ethics, you have to understand. Once you understand that, as a common man, because ethics is what is understood by a common man, once you understood as a common man, if you are able to present it in a manner, in a logical manner, you stand to get better marks. Okay?
चलिए, उम्मीद है ये जो लोग देख रहे हैं स्टडी IQ IAS हिंदी पर, और जो लोग समझ पा रहे हैं अंग्रेजी में भी बातचीत, उनको भी केस स्टडी में और एथिक्स के पेपर को समझ को लेकर काफी फायदा मिला होगा। सर, आपसे बहुत पहले 1995 में एक स्टूडेंट ने कुछ सहयोग लिया था यूपी PCS के इंटरव्यू के लिए। उन्होंने यूट्यूब पर आपको याद किया है।
अच्छा, ओके।
और उस समय आपने जो उनको बताया था वो भी उन्होंने लिखा है, मैं आपको पर्सनली भेज दूंगा। तो बहुत शुक्रिया आप लोग का इतना समय निकालने के लिए। सर, आप आए, एक बार फिर से इतना समय दिया और इतनी गहरी समझ दी। तो अगले गुरुवार को, जैसा कि गुरुवार को हर बार होता है, ज्ञानवाणी सेशन में फिर मुलाकात होगी। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। पढ़ाई कीजिए, अच्छे से तैयारी कीजिए। नमस्कार।